Okay, let's try this problem. Here they say if 6.35 grams of solid copper reacts with excess silver chloride to produce copper 2 chloride and silver, what's the maximum mass of silver that can be made? All right, let's take it one piece at a time. So as you read your problems, when they give you information about something, we're going to draw a vertical line there. So we start reading. When 6.35 grams of solid copper. Okay, we're going to find copper right here, and we're going to draw a vertical line coming down from copper. Now they give us information about copper, 6.35 grams. Anytime they give us information about grams, a mass, we're going to draw that at the top of our vertical line. So I'm going to write down 6.35 grams right here. Then they give us a lot of other information. Right now, the word excess copper 2 chloride, we're going to ignore that. It tells us we're also using excess silver chloride. We're ignoring that. But the next big piece of information says, we have a question. What is the maximum mass, that's grams, of solid silver produced? So we come over and we find our solid silver. We draw a vertical line for our silver. And if they want information about grams, well, we're just going to go ahead and put a question mark up at the top, and we're going to call that grams. Grams goes up at the top. Now we're going to go ahead and connect our two vertical lines. Well, inside what we just made was this sort of box, or we made sort of a hole down here underneath our chemical equation. What goes in the hole? The mole. So moles go in the hole. Any information I have about moles of silver will go down here. Any information about moles of copper will go down here. Now we know the path we need to take. We need to go from grams of copper down to moles of copper. We're going to need to go from moles of copper to moles of silver, and we're going to need to go from moles of silver up to grams of silver. So we have some information that we need to do that. The first step we need to do is to go from grams of copper to moles of copper. The way we go from grams to moles is using the molar mass. The molar mass of copper, if you look that up on the periodic table, is 63.55 grams per mole. I usually write that information right here in the middle of my line. I'm going to go ahead and write 63.55 grams per mole, and I'm going to put that in parentheses. The other piece of information we're going to need is we're going to need to go from moles of copper to moles of silver. How we get that is by using our balanced reaction. We're going to use the coefficients in our balanced chemical reaction. Those coefficients are an invisible 1 right here to a coefficient of 2. So this is a 1:2 mole ratio. I usually write that along the line where I'm going from moles to moles. Then once I get to this step and I have moles of silver, I need to change those moles to grams. So when we go from moles to grams or grams to moles, again, we just need the molar mass of that compound. We need the molar mass of silver. If you look up the molar mass of silver on the periodic table, it has a molar mass of 107.87 grams per mole. Again, I'm going to write that conversion right here. 107.87 grams per mole. I'm going to put those in parentheses. At this point, you have all the information you need to just pick up your calculator. We're going to start with our 6.35 grams. Our beginning is 6.35, and to change those grams into moles, well, when we go down a line, like Alice in Wonderland, when she falls down the rabbit hole, she gets smaller. When we go down a line, we divide. You're going to take your 6.35 grams divided by your molar mass, 63.55. If you do that, you get 0.100. Now we have moles of copper. We're going to go from moles of copper over to moles of silver. What do I know? I know for every 1 mole of copper, there are 2 moles of silver, twice as much silver. So if I have 0.100 moles of copper, I should have twice as many moles of silver. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply by a 2/1 ratio. If it's a 1 to 2, I'm getting bigger. So I multiply by 2. When I do that, I get 0.200 moles. Now I have moles of silver. You can go from moles of silver up to grams of silver, and the way we go from moles to grams is we multiply by the molar mass, and we have that molar mass. That molar mass is 107.87. So if you take your 0.2 times 107.87, you should get an answer at the end here of 21.6 grams, and that is the final answer for your grams of silver that are produced. Now, a couple of pieces of recommendation. Along the way, try not to round along the way. You're just going to keep those values in your calculator and you're going to round at the end. And I also want to show you how this correlates to exactly what you would have done with dimensional analysis. We'll do this first time. If we had done this just using a string of conversions, we would have started with 6.35 grams of copper. Okay, so I'm going to write that right here. 6.35 grams of Cu. Then you would have said, I don't want grams of Cu. I want to go to moles. I can always go grams to moles. So we would have used a conversion factor where we got rid of grams of Cu and we went to moles of Cu. Now, 1 mole of copper is 63.55 grams, and grams would have canceled out. Now notice, your first step is you took 6.35 divided by 63.55. That's exactly what we did, and that got us moles of copper. Now, the next step that you would have done, if you had moles of copper, and you're like, I don't want moles of copper, I don't even want copper, I want silver, is you would have used your mole ratio. So you would have said, okay, we're going to get rid of moles of copper. I'm going to put it diagonally. Moles Cu. I want to go to moles of silver. And for every 1 copper, there's 2 moles of silver. So it's a 1 to 2 ratio. Moles of copper cancel out. Now we're at moles of silver. Well, look at your next step. You multiplied by 2. That's what we did. It was a 1 to 2 ratio. We just multiplied by 2. We're following along here. Your last conversion, if you had moles of silver and you wanted grams of silver, you would have done another conversion step. You would have gotten rid of moles of Ag by putting it diagonally. You would have tried to go to grams of silver. And the way you would have done that was with the molar mass. 1 mole is 107.87 grams. That lets moles of silver cancel. Now, again, what did we do? We multiplied by 107.87. Yes, down is divide, up is multiply. Doing this, you would have gotten exactly the same answer, 21.6 grams. So regardless of how you do it, you're gonna get the same answer. It's just that when we start getting complicated problems, when I start asking you not just, hey, how many grams of silver, but hey, at the same time, can you go to grams of copper chloride? Can you go to grams of silver chloride? Can you figure out everything about this problem? The mole hole becomes superior, and you're gonna wonder why anybody does it any other way. So keep practicing. Take care.